Welcome to the SGN podcast, where it's all sim, all the time.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another SGN podcast. And today we have a very exciting guest, Micah Brown, game director of Maximum Football. Thank you for taking the time to come and join me on the SGN podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And I just want to give you a quick shout out. You've been going around and taking time out of your busy schedule and giving it to small creators like myself, SGN Hub, and others in the community who really appreciate you taking the time out of this, because we aren't the huge channels that are out there that of course would love to do this, and a lot of other companies don't take the time to give the little guys like us the time of day. So I just want to give you your flowers and say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to give us little guys a chance.
Yeah, anytime. Absolutely. We didn't even think of it like a big guy, little guy thing. It's just, you guys were cool. So
yeah, well, no, I appreciate that. And for those watching, I just want to say he has been going around and hopping on a lot of people's podcasts, answering questions. He's been on SGN Hub. He's been on Getting's Gaming Corner. And I want to just preface this right now. I watched both of those, and anything they talked about with him, I'm not rehashing here. So if we go through this and you guys there's a question, you're like, why didn't SGN ask that? Well, chances are they've already covered it. So go back and watch those discussions with him, because I don't feel the need to rehash information. It's in their video. Go watch theirs if there's something that you feel I missed, because I'm pretty sure I'm covering everything. You guys know I'm very thorough. I told Micah this already. I have a list of things we're going to talk about. They're not in particular order as far as what would normally make sense. So bear with me, guys. We're just kind of go through. And Micah, I just want to let you know, a lot of my questions are things that I wish were in the current football game available to us right now. And a lot of these things that I'm asking you are things you can find in other sports titles, whether it's MLB The Show, NBA 2K, things like that. I know you guys draw a lot of inspiration from other titles, and that's kind of where I got these questions.
All right.
So the first one, we know Maximum's big on customization. Are there alternate uniforms available? Like when we, either the default teams or when we create them, are we isolated to just the home and away, or do we get to make a third alternate, as so many NFL teams have these days?
We have alternates available. So the way it will work is we will give you the first. So the original uniform you can create is free. The alternate, so you can do the home and away for free. We're deciding if the alternate will be something that you have to pay for. So you would unlock the ability to do an alternate. So nothing's final yet, so don't quote it yet. But remember, the game is free, so we have to figure out where do we charge people without it being annoying. We don't want to stop people from actually making teams. So one of the things that we thought would be a good compromise is if we just charge when you want an additional uniform. And the way we have it right now is that you can have up to 6 alternate uniforms if you want. It doesn't even limit at 6 right now. We're thinking to limit it to 6. But right now you can just keep pressing, new alternate, and just keep designing new alternate uniforms.
Right.
So
I like that. And I'll say go ahead, monetize it. All right, because guys, we've been saying this for years, and it's not just Madden, 2K, especially MLB The Show this year. That's not an update worthy of a new purchase, but they did it. And so if we're getting a game that is free to play, that's not a yearly cycle, you monetize some things, because you're going to spend, you think about how much you'd spend on a brand new game, $70 or $99 to $100 for early access. Think how much you can get in game for that kind of money when you're not, and you're spending stuff on top of that. Whether you're, if you're playing 2K, you have to pay for cosmetics on top of the game. MLB The Show, you're paying for things for Diamond Dynasty, things in your Road to the Show. Madden is the same way. So they're just cutting out that $70 to $100 initial charge. So I'm all for it. Like, people get a base thing to play for free, just like Fortnite, Apex Legends, which I love and play. And then if you want extra cosmetics and things like that, that's your choice. You don't have to use it. So I'll tell you right now, I want you guys to be successful. I want you guys to make your money. I would say monetize it because the game is free. This one, big question, and there's only one game that has this right now, one sports game, I should say, but this is very, very important to football, and you hear it talked about almost every Sunday, whether it's in the battle of the trenches or wide receiver DB interactions. Wingspans. Right now, current football game, every player's arm length is the exact same. There's no difference. So I'm just curious if you guys have looked into wingspans, because that does affect, a blocker can get their hands out and extend, and they're a better blocker because of their arm length. It obviously impacts wide receivers. It impacts a lot of the positions on the field. And so I was just curious if you guys have thought about wingspans, if that's something you might consider putting in at a later date. Just something, I wanted to ask.
Right now, we don't have any wingspans in the game, but I think sort of one thing that we are trying to get to, we're not there yet, is a game of inches, right? Where, inches matter, right? Inches of height, inches of jumping, inches of wingspan, all those things. Right now, we're kind of at a game of feet, probably.
Okay. No, yeah, of course. No, I was just curious if it was something you guys had thought about. I mean, I know that you guys are going to continually add things throughout the game. And so, listening to your guys' conversations with the other Gettins Gaming and SGN, guys, is live service. So there's going to be things that are going to come to the game that aren't released at launch. And so a lot of these questions aren't necessarily questions for, hey, is this going to be at launch? It's going to be, is this on your roadmap? Is this something you guys are thinking about adding down the line? And I don't think that's a bad thing to ask, because Madden continually gives us a 4 to 5 year roadmap, and no one bats an eye. So this is just the same sort of thing. Like, we know they're going to give us content continually down the line. So even if these aren't something that are right now, it's just curious to see if there's something that you guys are thinking about. This one, all right, I want to think of how to word this the right way. Okay, so obviously there's player ratings in the game. And my curiosity with player ratings is, like, what kind of player ratings are there, and do all players have the same ratings? And my best example of that is in the other football game, quarterbacks will have pass coverage and press ratings and things like that, and defensive players will have accuracy ratings for medium. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so my question is what kind of ratings do you guys have, and are they applied to all players or position specific?
So we pretty much we got inspiration from Madden, NCAA, and 2K games, and pretty much brought in the attributes that we thought were the most important. So all players, no matter what position, do have all of the attributes. And the reason for that is because you can move a linebacker if you want to be ridiculous and move a linebacker to quarterback, then you can do that, right? Okay. It's going to be terrible, right? Yep. You can have a kicker play safety if you want to have a kicker play safety, but he's going to have all, level 50 tackling, level 50 pursuit, all those attributes. So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, why does a quarterback even have a press? It doesn't even make sense. They're never going to do it. But there's some players who do want to just be weird, or not weird, sorry. They just want to have fun and move players to different positions. So that's the main reason for that. Yeah.
In pretty much every other sports game, the minimum rating a player can have is 25. Is that the same for you guys, or does yours have that threshold of all the way down to 0?
No, we go down to 50.
Down to 50. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any player rating, like, off the top of your head, you could tell me that's unique to you guys that isn't in Madden, like a specific rating?
A specific rating that's not in Madden? I don't know if we have anything specific.
Okay.
After launch, we're going to be coming out with personality attributes sometime after launch, and so that will be pretty cool. It's actually really cool, the design for it.
What will the personality? What will that impact? Like, what will that drive in the game?
Mostly chemistry and whether players like each other, hate each other, and then whether coaches can get the players to kind of get along with each other.
Okay.
So mostly, so it'll affect in like Dynasty and franchise. It will affect contracts, and it'll affect how good the players can play together. So there'll be slight attribute boosts if players have chemistry together. So the coach will be able to help the chemistry of the players and you want to recruit players onto your team who have like-minded personality attributes.
Dude, that's absolutely awesome. I love that. I like that because I love the team chemistry feature in 2K. I really like that. And the reason I even got into that feature was because someone pointed out to me the old Spurs, the good Spurs, their team, the reason they were so good was their team chemistry was off the charts.
Yeah.
You didn't have anyone with a big head who was like, you had one of the greatest power forward of all time, potentially, Tim Duncan.
Yep.
He was never saying, I need to have a certain amount of shots or whatever, you know, and they just had great team chemistry there out there to win. And that showed. They won 5 championships, like in a 12-year span. So I absolutely love that. I think chemistry is very important. The Chiefs are showing that now in their current dynasty. So I love that. I'm excited to see how that's implemented. Okay, another customization cosmetic question. So we know you guys are going to be very, very huge on giving us tons of cosmetics and customization options. One feature that I absolutely love in NBA 2K is when you're setting up a player's accessories, you can change the frequency. So they don't come out wearing the same thing every single game. They're going to rotate based on how frequently they wear an armband or a headband or something on their leg. Right now in Madden, you give someone an arm sleeve, they're wearing that every single game. And we see it in real life football. Players will change up their accessories from game to game and change up their look. So my question was, do you currently, or have you thought about adding a frequency option to players that we edit their look so we can have players have a different appearance from week to week?
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, we haven't thought of that one. I think it's a great idea. So
okay,
I'll try to push it up. I'll put it on the list. It's a good idea.
I mean, yeah, it's just when you assign an accessory, 2K has a frequency of rarely, sometimes, frequently, always, or something like that. And then based on how things are set up, it just randomly like RNGs it before a game, and then the player comes out with different gear. Now, if you select always for everything, they'll just come out saying that wearing the same stuff all the time. But if it's some of the stuff is sometimes, some of it's rarely, they might come out with an arm sleeve, but not a leg sleeve that they wore the game before, or something like that.
Can you set like let's say like an arm, like the upper arm of the player? Can you set 2 different items and say this one is like 20% and this one is like, or like this one he'll wear most of the time, the second one he'll wear less of the time, or does he just kind of like randomize it?
It's just randomize it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but that's still cool.
Your idea is expanding upon it, which I think is great, where you can like just have like a frequency tab there. Either way, I just think it'd be really cool, so that you get all these cool customization items like these visors you guys are going to have, and all the accessories players can have, and you put them on a player and they're just the same thing every game. And it's really cool when you can kind of have them rotate through. So that was just a question I had, because I love that about 2K. All right, so gameplay sliders. I know you guys have gameplay sliders, and I'm curious if you can at least, I don't know if you can or not, talk about the different sliders that you have in the game that we can tinker around and play with.
So right now we don't have sliders.
No gameplay sliders. Okay.
No, right now we don't. No.
We
may, before launch we might end up having them. I mean, it just depends if we, our goal is. I mean, I understand the idea of sliders is that some play, you might want the linebackers to pursue a little better. You can, there's lots of different things you can change. At first, our goal is just to make something that's balanced on its own. And then if we find that a bunch of people are complaining and they want more, personalized stuff, we'll start throwing more sliders in there. Honestly, we just haven't really seen a need for the sliders yet. If, it just comes down to what people say they want. During testing, if people are saying they want a lot of more sliders for more control, then we'll throw those in. I don't think it's very hard for us to do.
Yeah, no, and I'm sliders. If the gameplay is on point, like sliders don't necessarily need to be there. If we're having realistic, inaccurate throws and realistic yards per carry, not on a per game basis, because obviously outliers happen, but over the course of several games, if things are showing out to be realistic, you don't need anything. So my follow-up question would be, and I actually have this down the line so I can kind of double dip here, is can you elaborate then on how the gameplay changes between difficulty levels? If there's no sliders, what changes on the CPU side of things that makes it more difficult as you go up in difficulty levels, or is there no difficulty levels?
Right now we don't have difficulty levels.
Okay, so it's just a base. Okay.
Yeah, but we do have. So again, this is another thing where adding in difficulty levels and adding in sliders isn't really a hard thing to do. So we could potentially add those in pretty easily. But if we were going to add in difficulty levels and sliders and stuff, then there's a lot of areas to do it. You can pretty much do it with any behavior in the game. So if you have a quarterback and you need him to be more, like if you have a slider, if you want him to be more accurate, we can just kind of narrow down his accuracy so there's a lot of things you can do. You can make transitions between like running and turning a little slower. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of it's kind of smoke and mirrors, but I don't think it would be too hard to add in the sliders.
Okay. Follow-up, I guess, question to that would be penalties. Penalties, simulation-based football game, penalties are in the game, correct?
I'm sorry?
Penalties are in the game, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Is there sliders for penalties, or are those kind of, you just have it internally set to, trigger at a realistic rate based on data you guys have collected, or how will penalties work?
Yeah, so in order to have, so we don't have challenges right now. So
Okay.
we don't have any challenges in the game. And in order to have penalties that sometimes work and sometimes don't, or not sometimes work, but in order to have realistic penalties, you have to have referees that can make mistakes, right? Like they don't really make they can make mistakes. And in order for us to do that correctly, I would like to have a real system where you have referees who have different attributes themselves, right?
Like MLB The Show does.
Do they?
For their
play
umpires. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So something like that, right? Where
Yep.
you could have for football, it might be a little different, where you have eyesight distance or something, and then how wide they can see. You could almost put like a vision cone on a referee and make it longer or wider depending on their attributes, and then whatever they're looking at, they have 100% accuracy of their calls. But if they're not looking at something, and maybe it drops down to 50 or 75.
And some refs let wide receivers and DBs play a little bit more down the field. Others do not. So you'd have a personality, I guess, of how.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. Okay.
Yeah. So so that's the reason why we don't. In order for us to actually have penalties so we don't have challenges because we don't have fake penalties, right? If there's a penalty in the game, it gets called, right? We don't have the ability to say a penalty only gets called 12% of the time, or 50% of the time, or 75% of the time. In order to have that, I think we need to have real referees that have different attributes. So once we have that, then I think we should put in the challenges and put in the referees make a mistake on calls and that kind of stuff.
And for those of you who are sitting here freaking out right now, oh my God, there's not challenges in the game. Guys, the challenge system is completely broken in the other game that's out right now. It does not work. You'll have a player come, obviously an instant replay, catch the ball 1 foot out of bounds. You'll challenge it. It'll uphold. So I don't think not having challenges at the beginning is a problem, especially if they're going to take the time to do it correctly. So props to you guys on making sure you give us properly working feature versus a feature that is just thrown together that does not work correctly. So I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people appreciate that when they take a step back to just look at the bigger picture. Okay, let me get scrolled up. Okay, play calling. Now I know you talked about playbooks a little bit with Gettin. My question is more, I don't care so much about playbooks because I'll create my own playbook. Playbooks aren't as important to me as the coach suggestions. So my question is, do you guys have a coach suggestions feature well, I'll let you answer that first before I continue.
We do, yes. We have a coach suggestion feature, but it doesn't change depending on the coach you have. So
No.
we have a coach suggestion. Yeah, exactly. We have a coach suggestion, and it's based off of the playbook that you've chosen for that game. And in Dynasty mode, your playbook is attached to your coach. So, you can change your playbook for your coach in Dynasty. But then once you go into the game, the coach suggestion is based off of that playbook.
Will the suggestions change from game to game based on opponent or scenario, or is it a pretty standard, we're going to suggest this on first down, second and short, second and long, second and third, and it kind of is the same suggestions from game to game, no matter scenario, time, team, things like that, or is it kind of adaptive coaching suggestions?
We've just started getting into the adaptive stuff.
Okay.
Up until like this month, pretty much, it was all based on down, distance, and time remaining on the clock, and the score. So if you were losing towards the end of the game, and you have the ball, your offense goes into desperation mode. Desperation mode is basically like, preserve time on the clock as much as you can. Try to get down the field, call the plays quickly, all that kind of stuff. Actually learning from your opponents, we just started getting that in, and it starts with basically just how many runs to the right, how many runs to the left, how many passes to the right, how many passes to the left. Now start changing play calling based off of that. So that's the first step. The next step would be like, okay, let's really look at your opponent before the game. What kind of quarterback does he have? What kind of receivers, linebackers, and let's create a plan for that. But we haven't gotten there yet.
How many plays are able to be in your guys' playbook?
Oh, it's where we have too many right now.
No, it's not a problem. I mean, the reason I asked that is, I believe Madden has 500 plays in a playbook, but the coaching suggestions only pretty much offer the same 30 plays every game, no matter what, offense or defense. And so I guess my question or request would be, please don't let your suggestions only grab a small, tiny percentage of the entirety of the plays in the playbook. I'd like to see, where like 80% of the plays that are in the playbook are at least suggested at some format from the game. We know there's a lot of plays in NFL playbooks that they will only call a handful of times in a season. So do they need to be suggested every week? No, but definitely don't want to have the same play suggested over and over and over again. So that would just be, I don't know if that's on your guys' radar or not. That would just be my suggestion, or my request, I would say, is to make sure that if you have that many plays, that somehow, some way, we're getting different plays suggested to us throughout the game, so we're not same call. Will there be any ability, whether dynasty or franchise, like a game planning feature where ahead of the game we can kind of state, all right, this team is really, really good at stopping the run, but they're poor against pass. So we want to adjust our game plan to pass the ball more, and then it's reflected in the plays that are suggested. Is there any sort of game planning, or I guess I'll kind of just leave it at that?
Right now, no. We don't have any of that, no. But I mean, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. No, yeah, cool. A lot of these, I was like, hey, if they're not in there, maybe it's an idea for down the line. So
that's a big part of these. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I mean, I have so many things here. Nothing that I have is in any of like a complete list of all these sports games that are out there. This is just someone who's been doing sim stuff for a long time that has gathered a wish list from tons of games, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, and just throwing them out there, basically.
I mean, a big part of this is just figuring out what you guys want, like talking to you guys and then seeing what people say in the comments. Like, do people actually want these features? Because one of the things we really do focus on the basics, right? The very basics of football, trying to get all that correctly. And we're sort of like finally coming out of a cave of that, right? Like, we've just gotten out of the basics cave, and now we're starting to look at, all right, what else can we do out here? And so, like, honestly, it's nice to hear this stuff again, because a lot of the stuff we've kind of just put on the, all right, we don't have time for that right now. Let's just get the basics working. And so maybe we need a refresher, and some of this conversation is helping, what else can we do besides the basics? Because we got to start getting into that mindset now.
And I will say, with my community, like talking and a lot of things I've seen, people love game planning, but they don't like the way game planning is currently given to us now, because the game planning that we have now, there, especially in between games, is you select, we want to protect against the short pass, right? Or we want to contain the quarterback, but it has zero impact on the plays that are suggested to us. And all that happens is we scroll over to a game planning playbook, and all the plays that are designed to contain the quarterback are listed there. All the ones that are designed to protect against the short pass there. There's really no strategy to it. And a lot of times you game plan to set stuff up, right? So if you run the ball to set up the play action, and you'd like to see things like that implemented in and have that, the way you attack teams be different, and we see it every Sunday, the way teams will attack, especially when you see division games, right? they know each other so well, they attack each other differently than they go and attack other teams. And so having some sort of realistic game planning that has an impact on how your game is called is something that I know people love, and it feels like they have more of that immersion and control in their franchise and dynasty. Will there be head coaching tendencies?
We have head coaching. So the head coach has a recruiting strategy. He has the playbook, which basically helps determine which players are going to be upgraded, which facilities are going to be upgraded, which players you actually sign. So some of the tendencies are kind of wrapped up in that. But so like, are you saying like?
So NCAA football 14. NCAA football 14, the coaches had tendencies for aggressive versus conservative play calling. How many carries the running back one would get versus running back number two. They had different tendencies. It was a 0 to 1. Like if you went to the left, it'd be more aggressive. If you went in the middle, it's more balanced. If you went to the right, you're more conservative. And that impacted how the coach, like if they go for it on 4th and 1, if they're more of a conservative, they're not going to go for it on 4th down. But if they're more of an aggressive coach, they will. It also helps with rotations for running backs and players and stuff like that. So I was more, when I was coaching tendencies, I'm more thinking of the tendencies they had in NCAA football 14.
Okay, no, we don't have those.
Okay.
But I mean, again, this is I love the idea. So
yeah,
the only real thing we do right now for subbing players in and out is based on injury or stamina.
Okay.
So you'll always have your best players in the game. You can sub them out if you want to manually, of course. But anything the AI does to sub your players in and out is based on whether they get hurt or whether they're tired.
And I want to piggyback off that because I love that you say it's based off of stamina and if they get tired. Right now, that's currently broken in Madden. And so typically you'd see in an NFL game, if a player has like a big 50, 60-yard run or pass play or whatever, they're coming off the field and taking a breather. How does the stamina fatigue work in your game? If I have my running back and I give it to him 4 or 5 times in a row, are we going to see him sub out and catch a breather for 1 or 2 plays because he just had it 4 or 5 times in a row? Or is there a different way that stamina and fatigue is accrued?
So the way it works is they have basically their stamina determines like how much fatigue they can actually handle. Every play that you run where the player's on the field, a little bit of that fatigue breaks off, right? And so if you are like a 99 stamina, then you can really do a lot before you start getting tired. But that's sort of the long-term fatigue. We have a long-term fatigue and then a short-term fatigue in the game. So when you press sprint, how long can you actually sprint for before it gets tired, stuff like that.
Okay.
So every play that you're not on the field, your player gains a little bit of that stamina back. And then when he goes back to the field, he loses it. He gains it back on the sideline, and then it keeps coming back and forth like that. But that's generally how the stamina works. And if you can manually keep a player in the game if his stamina is low, but when you do that, his odds of getting injured just shoot through the roof.
Right, and potentially missed tackles, missed blocks, things like that, correct?
Right now, no, but I mean that's wouldn't be hard to do. Actually, now that you mention it, it's a great idea. So
yeah, just because when you make tired, you make mental mistakes, or you don't have the same strength or energy. You know what I mean? It's kind of just how I was thinking of it. All right, so this isn't really a question, but I recall saying that you guys were still figuring out passing controls, and you were open to ideas. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to throw out my idea. That's all. This isn't a question. This is just me throwing out my idea. So you would have the L2 trigger would control velocity. So every football game that's ever been in existence has had like receiver buttons be like square, X, circle, L1, R1, right? That's fine. That doesn't bother me. So I was thinking if you have a guy in the pocket, I'm assuming R2's turbo because that's, or sprint or whatever. That's, again, every football game that's been out known to man other than NFL 2K with the smash X button has R2 as a trigger for acceleration, which I think is great. So my idea was you're the quarterback in the pocket. L stick obviously moves your quarterback around. You would, whenever you're going to pass the ball, you would have L2 with your because you can do L2 over here, and then you can either do L1 because you have 2 fingers, or you have your thumb for the other one. And how hard you press and squeeze L2 would determine the throw velocity. So if you squeeze it tight, it's a bullet pass. If you hardly press it, it's a lob pass. And in between, and there's, how you fine tune it would be in between. And then you could have the right stick for aiming. So if you aim up on the right stick, it's going to go up to the right, down, whatever. And I thought that'd be a great way for players to on the fly control the velocity, the loft, because right now the way you control that is tapping a button, and I just don't feel like tapping or pressing a button is a great way to really get a feel for the pass trajectory that you want. And you're limited to only 3. You tap it for a loft, you press it normally for a normal throw, and then you hold it for a bullet throw. And I feel like there's better ways to do that. And the L2 trigger is really not utilized much in the passing game of any game out there. And so I thought that was just my idea.
Well, if you do what you're saying, we don't have what you're saying, first off.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of it. But I think if we did do something like that, we could probably get away from just having a bullet pass, a normal pass. Like right now, we do have a bullet pass, a normal pass, and a lob pass, and it's based on whether you tap the button, hold and press the button, or hold it for like in between amount of time, hold it for a little while and then let it go. If we did something like you're talking about where you can actually hold a trigger or a bumper, probably a trigger would be make most sense. Then you could basically you wouldn't even have 3 levels. You would have almost like a ton of levels. So if you barely press it, it's just a little more bullet. If you press it all the way, it's all the way bullet. So you could have varying degrees of bullet, varying degrees of the normal pass, and then varying degrees of the lob pass. It'd give you way more control.
Yep. A lot of cool passes too.
Yeah. I think that would be something where it's like, I like the idea. It would be something for more hardcore gamers, I think, more like hardcore football video game fans.
I don't know, man, because you got the freeform passing in Madden that's difficult, but everyone uses it online. I don't know. I guess I've even tried to use it. I don't like it personally. I prefer the vision cone from like 06. Like I'm still prefer the vision code. I don't like the new freeform because you don't have a lot of time to throw. In here you have to press and hold L2 and then aim where you want to throw and then release it all in a split second. I don't like it personally. But so I was just throwing out the different.
I think it's a damn good idea.
Your shot, right?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah. So, okay. For Dynasty and franchise, player progression and regression extremely important for balance. And I'm just curious if you guys, when you throw this out there, obviously you have some sort of tool for how players progress and how they regress. And I'm just curious if you guys are planning on testing this, or if you have. And I ask this because multiple sports games, they don't seem to test this to make sure that it stays balanced as years go through. So if you start your league and you have a certain amount of talented, they're all talented, but you know what I mean, like talented players. You go 3 or 4 years into the league, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, it doesn't matter, and that number of upper talented players gets quadrupled. And then you have a league full of upper talented players, and there's really no differences between top teams and bottom teams because all the players are good. And so I guess my question would be is, with the player progression regression model you guys have for both NCAA and the franchise football side of things, have you guys tested to make sure that the player progression and regression keeps the ratings balanced with your vision for the game over extended period of time? Or do we have some control over that with like sliders of how we want players to regress?
So right now we don't have regression in Dynasty. Franchise has regression, but Dynasty has no regression. The players just age out of the league after 4 years.
It's college, that's fine.
Yeah. You can redshirt them if you can redshirt the players so they could potentially have 5 years, but they age out after 4 years. So there's no real ability to kind of amass a bunch of superstar players. They all just end up graduating out. But so we do have regression in the franchise mode, and it's based off of mostly age, and it's mostly based off age, and then there's underlying sort of potentials that players have. It's sort of like a hidden. Each attribute has a hidden attribute, which is the potential of that attribute. And if it's very high, then the player has a lot of ability to make that attribute much better. And if it's low, it's a lot lower. It also affects how quickly it degrades as you age. So we wanted to do something where, and this might not be directly answering your question, but it has to do with regression and progression. And so with players, you can kind of sometimes have players who can play up until like their 40s, right? If you have a quarterback or a kicker. So the way we did it was when you first enter the league, when you're a young guy, you progress all of your abilities, your physical abilities, your mental abilities, everything keeps progressing when you first enter the league. After a couple years in the league, your physical abilities stop progressing and your mental abilities continue progressing. Then after a few more years, when you're sort of, you're not new and you're not middle, you're approaching like mid to late career as a football player. And again, this sometimes it's different per position. I know that, running backs, their entire career is like 7 years if they're good.
Right.
If they're great. But what ends up happening, the reason this system works so well is because running backs generally rely more on their physical abilities, right? Yep. And so if those physical abilities start to decay right after your early phase of life, early phase of your career, then teams will stop picking you up because your ratings will go down. And then once you get into like really becoming an old player, then for a little while at first, when you're kind of an old player, your mental abilities will continue to kind of go up, some of them. But then once you get into sort of like, we have like an ancient category, then everything's just dropping. Everything's dropping, and these players are going to retire out pretty much any minute or any season.
Are there scenarios where guys can come in, whether it's via draft or just in the roster that's there, where they just kind of stay the same? They don't really get better, but they don't really get worse, and they're just in the league, and that's what they are. We see that happen often. Or we see guys that come in, a lot of times quarterbacks come in and they're called busts. I don't know if that's a fair assessment given the circumstances they were in, but you look at some of the draft picks of the New York Jets last couple of years for quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, that didn't work out. Zach Wilson clearly didn't work out. And you have Kenny Pickett just got traded yesterday. And these young quarterbacks, they got traded because of their performance. And so my curiosity would be, are there scenarios where like their mental attributes maybe are getting better, but they're not necessarily getting better overall every year? Sometimes they stay the same. They don't really get better. So we have some of that variety where a player might turn into a bust or might not get better like we needed him to. Is there things like that?
I mean, it's not actually like we don't specifically like hard code that into the game anywhere, but the system does allow for that to happen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it basically just happens naturally in the game because the coach will upgrade players, make them better. So the AI of the coach, if you're not controlling that team. So I'm talking about the AI controlled teams. So the AI coach of that team will upgrade the players based on the playbook. So if the playbook is like a run heavy playbook, then the coach is going to, improve people that are important for heavy run playbooks. So that's kind of how they determine who they upgrade. There's other things involved, like should we upgrade the star players or should we upgrade the backup? Should we upgrade the old players or the new players? So we have a bunch of stuff in there that helps determine whether they, improve the backups, whether they improve the old people, whatever. But in general, if the player matches the coach's playbook or their strategy, then they'll be upgraded pretty regularly. And also they have different, and earlier I mentioned the potentials. So potentials also factor into it. Also, there's other things like facilities and there's coaches, coach abilities, which also kind of make upgrading different players cheaper and more expensive. So, if you have a passing facility that's all the way upgraded, then upgrading your quarterbacks becomes very cheap. Okay. So that's kind of how it works, right? It depends on what the coach's strategy is, and he'll upgrade players depending on that. But remember that each player has a potential. So they have potential with all of their attributes.
Yeah, of course.
So if a quarterback has very low passing potential, then you're going to put a lot of XP into him, and he's not going to really get better very quickly. So that's really how it works.
How do you earn XP?
So we have an XP system. There's a couple different ways. The main way is through coach challenges. So there's game challenges for single game challenges. There's there's season challenges, and then career challenges. And each one that you complete gives you a bunch of XP every single game or at the end of this season. And then we also have a sort of it's almost like fantasy football sort of XP, where if you gain 10 yards, you get like 2 experience points. If you gain 20 yards, you get 4 or whatever. It's all based on pretty much fantasy football. Okay. So you'll get XP that way as well.
So my question on that would be, you have game challenges. So ahead of the game, you are aware of a challenge where it says you're going to earn a certain amount of XP if you get 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns with your running back, something like that, correct?
Yeah.
Do you worry that that's gonna? And I ask this because this is how they do it in Madden, and for breakout scenarios, to upgrade a player's dev trait. Do you worry that that's gonna dictate how players play, to where they're more playing to upgrade their player versus playing to win the game? So it's like, okay, I know I need to get X amount of yards with this player. I know I need to get X amount of touchdowns with this player, and I'm going to get a huge XP bump. So everything else be damned, I'm going to make sure I get him 100 yards and I get him these 2 touchdowns, win or lose. Do you worry that would have, and that because that's how I feel it is in Madden right now, is you're given a scenario breakout. Hey, this player is going to get a star dev trait upgrade if he does this in your next game. Well, you want that star dev trait because it's going to make your team better. So you go out there and you're like, all right, I got to get him 7 receptions. I got to give him X amount of yards. And so you don't play the game to win. You play it to get those goals with said player. And a lot of times it ends up in a loss. And I'm just curious, if you're worried that will have some impact. That's the main reason I don't like the XP system for game day things. I for season, I don't think it's a bad, because obviously it's tough to maintain. Oh, I got to get this for an entire season. Then you can just kind of play and whatever happens. But that's just me personally. The game day ones, because it dictates how you play, because you want everyone does these team building game modes because they want to get their team better. And so they're going to do whatever it takes to get their team better. And I ended up turning off breakout scenarios in Madden because I was sick of playing games where I was like, even if I win the game, if I don't get my guy that was going for a superstar upgrade, I'm gonna be upset. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just don't know if that thought or if you guys considered if how it's implemented is going to dictate the way people play their games a little bit.
I mean, it could if we don't balance it correctly, but I think it's all a matter of balance. And so far, I think we do have a good balancing of it. So if a player does want to just focus on the coach goals too much, to where they're just becoming like laser focused and they're not thinking about anything else, and they don't even care about winning, and all they want to do is just do the coach goals, then there's going to be, the system allows for it'll naturally penalize the player in different ways. So if you if you only upgrade your superstars, then your coach is going to have a very low pro development overall. And so when you're starting to recruit players coming out of college, they're going to look at you and be like, well, you only upgrade the superstars, right? So why the hell would I want to come to your school, right? So and then if you there's other things as well. So in the game, in Dynasty, when you're selling, you can sell jerseys as merchandise, and right now we allow you sell 3 jerseys as merchandise, and you can make them more expensive or less expensive, all that fun stuff. But the jerseys are actually the players in the game. So your top 3 players on your roster, you're selling those 3 jerseys, right? And so if you have the best player in all of college football, then he's going to sell a ton of jerseys, right? And it depends on how good your player is across the entire league. If your best player is like the 900th best player in college, then you're not going to sell very many of his jerseys. So you have a strategy here, right? You have a strategy of, do I want to put a bunch of resources into one player, right? And I'll put it in, just make a superstar, and he can potentially attract in people who buy a bunch of his jerseys, all this different stuff. But if I do that, then I'm not going to upgrade all my other players, and I'm going to get less recruits. I'm also not able to upgrade my coach, because you have to upgrade your coach with XP as well. And so you can decide all these different things. How do you want to play the game? Do you want to focus on individual players, focus on your coach? Do you want to focus on multiple players and spread it wide? But all these things have some sort of detrimental effect. So if you're losing games, then your coach's win-loss will go down, his reputation goes down, and then players don't want to play for him anymore. So if
I
you
like
just
that.
focus, yeah.
So it's balanced. I like that it's balanced. I like that you guys are taking time to make it balanced, and there's still a strategy to it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I appreciate that. Did I ask this? I can't remember. Did I ask about player tendencies already? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I told you I was kind of jumping around.
I think you asked about coach tendencies. I don't think
coach tendencies. Okay, player tendencies. So player tendencies, like a quarterback, how often he throws it deep versus short, or into coverage versus only throwing wide open. Running backs, how often they utilize specific moves, whether they're juking or hurdling or stiff arming or trucking. You know, is there something like that to make players feel different from each other?
So we don't have tendencies for players. One thing, if we do end up having tendencies, so there's in my opinion, there's two ways to do the tendencies. So you can either just base it off of the attributes they already have. So if you have a running back who has a very high spin attribute, he should spin more often, right? It's pretty simple, right? His tendency is just that he spins a lot because he's a good spinner. Or, you know, if you have a quarterback who throws deep passes, or if he has a very high deep pass attribute, then he should throw more deep passes. Right. That's one way to do it. That's probably the easier way to do it. The other way to do it, which I think might be a little bit cooler, is the RPG way, which is branching attribute tree, sort of like Skyrim, where you could have a quarterback and then he branches off into a medium, a short passer, medium passer, deep passer, or whatever you want him to do. Just have branching attributes. I think that's better than tendencies because I just think it's way better than tendencies. It's more interesting. You can upgrade.
Yeah, the main thing would be to get it. So if you have two, and I don't know how your overall scale works. So forgive me if I'm incorrect when I say this, but like if you have two quarterbacks who are both an 85 overall, right? I don't know if that's how your system, like, is it a ratings? Like, is 85 overall a thing, or is it a different?
Well, you have all the individual attributes and they all come together. So the quarterback's main passing attributes are the ones that form his overall attributes. So yeah, you do have an overall. Okay,
so if you have two quarterbacks who are both the same overall, how or what is in the game to make sure that they play differently from each other, right? Or are they going to play the same?
Right now, they'll play the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's just something down the line where potentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Off-season activities. OT. This is a lot of it's towards the NFL side of it. Some of it would be for Dynasty as well, but we have OTAs, training camps, position battles, practice squads. Anything like that, either like thought about potentially down the line.
So during off season right now, you have a high school game. So all the best high school players that are coming up into the draft, you can play an East versus West high school game. And we also have a spring game for your own team. We also have practices which allow you to load. So the way the practices work is it allows you to load plays. And so right now you can load. It's called loading. Sorry, but it's not like you load it.
Yeah.
It's just basically preparing your team. You just prepare your team for this play. So you can load 10 offensive plays and 10 defensive plays. And what you do is you practice it over and over and over. And at a certain point, you basically master it for that week. And then when you go, and so this isn't off season. Sorry, this is off week. Like this is during the week.
Yeah.
And then so once you basically master that play, when you call that play in the game, you get an attribute boost for everybody on the field during that play. So it's basically like, hey, your team really knows this play. When you go into the game, if you use this play, all your players will play better. But in terms of like off season, mostly what you do is you just upgrade the players. You do all of sort of like the team management stuff. And the only real gameplay that you can do is the spring game and the high school all-star game for now.
Okay. Let's see here. How do I want to word this question here? I kind of actually with practices, you said it's practices tied to playbooks. Here we go. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Playbooks. So if you sign a new player to your team, in the offseason, or you trade for a player, or if there's transfer portal in college. I don't know if there is or not. But anyway, you get a new player on your team. Is there some sort of degree of playbook knowledge that they have to be with your team for? They're not going to just know every single play week one right away, and they have to learn some of the plays via through practice and just being on a team, or do they just know every play right away?
They know all the plays right away, but
okay.
I mean, there's the whole loading plays I said a minute ago. And really what matters a lot more than anything is their awareness, right? Like a lot of their different like mental attributes. But I think it's a great idea. Honestly, I don't think it would be hard for us to get in the game. Is to just
that's an idea from NFL head coach. So
head coach had a lot of great stuff.
It had a lot of great stuff, and that was one of them. Is if you acquired a player, you couldn't call. You could call plays in the game, but it would let you know this player doesn't know this play, and so the chance of it being successful with him on the field for that play was diminished. If he's a wide receiver, sure, you have 2 or 3 other wide recievers who know what the play is, but that one's not going to do the right thing.
I think it's a great idea. I think now that we're talking about it, I think it'd be cool to kind of tie that into the personality. So if you have a player who's highly disciplined, maybe he can learn plays faster. Or if you different ways to mess with how they know plays, how many plays they know, how quickly they learn plays. There's a lot you can do with that. I think it's a great idea.
And it would adjust your game plan too. You recently acquire a player, and you obviously aren't going to have the full playbook available to him right away because he's been on the team for a week, or so he's only going to, they say it, when you have trades, I know in-season trades aren't very often in NFL, but when they do happen, they'll always say this player has a handful of plays that he can be on the field for.
Yeah.
Of course, as he split the team longer, he gets more playbook knowledge, things like that.
I mean, when I was in college, there was players in the huddle. We had to tell them, "You're standing over there, man." There's players who never really learn it.
All right, so this one, if you guys have this, I'm going to give you your flowers because this is something that I think continually gets overlooked year in year and year in year out by every football game that's been in existence. So we all know that kicking field goals, the wind has an effect on it, on the football. But in real life, the wind has an impact when you throw the football. And I know you told Gedden that kicks will be affected by the wind. I'm curious if deep passes, obviously, passes that travel in the air, that go up high, we see it when there's a strong wind and the quarterback's thrown into the wind. That's a huge impact on how far they can throw it. It gets hung up in the air. It'll push it out of bounds, things like that. So will wind have an effect on passes?
The wind right now we don't have that working. It's not a hard thing. We don't even have it. We don't have it working on the kicks right now, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay. But it's planned. It's planned.
It's planned. Yeah. Those things aren't too difficult to get in, right? The thing with the wind, though, is it's not hard to get that in working. But I don't want to put weather effects in until we have real weather. Like I said in the last interview, I want to have really cool weather effects. Like if you have wind, it should just be wind. I mean, some places just have windy days, of course. But
Chicago.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, I guess you could just have wind. I guess hard wind is a thing. Yeah, I mean, but I'm trying to get. What I want to do is focus on the weather effects all kind of together at once in a way. I was trying to avoid a lot of the weather effects because we're just trying to get the basics done, and really, like, for a long time, if you're just trying to get the accuracy, for a long time we've just been trying to get the accuracy perfect for the quarterback. So it's like, all right, now we need to mess the accuracy up with wind.
Right.
Yeah. So getting accuracy correct, that was the first goal. We're there. And so we can start looking at things like this where weather effects mess with things. But, I want to wait for the weather until we have the chance to do it all correctly. And I'm not saying we're going to wait completely on the weather because we have some really cool weather. Like, we have some really cool weather visuals right now. And it's kind of hard to decide, like, okay, should we launch with some of the cool, like, the weather visuals that we have? Because a lot of people want to see the weather visuals. It's really cool to have a bunch of rain, a bunch of mud, to have snow on the field, and it looks really awesome. We have that ability to do it right now, and it looks great. But you're not slipping on the ice. You know, your players aren't getting cold, they're not getting hot. When the rain comes, there's no gameplay effect. Like the players are dropping the ball more often or more fumbles. In order to do the weather stuff correctly, I think it needs a lot of gameplay effects. Otherwise, the first thing people are going to do, they're going to see rain and they're going to be like, oh, well, why is my player slipping? Right. So you know, maybe it just depends. Like, again, I'll probably hear from people, you know, after this video. And if a lot of people say, yeah, just put in the weather visuals and then get the weather effects in later, then that's something that we'll do.
Yeah. I would be a person who would, that's where I'm sitting, because right now we have horrible weather effects and visuals. So, yeah, I mean,
so just give you something at least.
It's true, and I don't understand, because Madden 25, the PS4 version, had great weather effects. They had it all the way up until they switched to the Frostbite engine. For whatever reason, Frostbite, which improved the graphics drastically, our weather became dog water. And it really sucks not having really cool weather effects. And then you go back to All Pro Football 2K8, where you could see the rain drops on the helmets and the field would degrade. And there you'd see people slipping in real time, you know, from a game that was made in 2007, 2 consoles ago. And so getting anything, even if it's just visuals, people are gonna be like, oh man, check out these visuals, and they're gonna post screens even if the effects aren't there. If it's like, hey guys, here's the visuals, we're gonna add the effects later, but we wanted to give you guys these visuals now because we know it's something that you don't have in any other option. I think that would be recepted very well, especially if it's open about, we're going to add this, because we were told with the launch of next gen we were going to get dynamic weather in Madden, and
where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah.
You know, that's just where I sit on it. I love weather games. I love snow games. I like rainy. I love that. That's football to me. You know, obviously playing games in nice weather's, you know, a great thing too. But, you know, you have majority of the season is played. A majority of the impactful NFL games are played November, December, January, and February, where the weather is not good.
Yeah.
So that's just where I sit on it. But I love the fact that you guys can try to do weather the right way. I love that we're going to have effects. I'm honestly more excited about the visuals than the effects, just because I haven't had effects in my life for football in over a decade. So for me, it's just, let me get the visuals. I'll just be happy with that.
All right. I mean, we might end up doing that. So.
It'd be great. I think it'd be kind of cool. Just throwing it out there, because I know you said you can literally throw the visuals in right now and it looks great. To maybe throw out a tweet with some screens and be like, would you guys be okay with just the visuals and no effects, with giving us more time to add the effects later, and just let people see what it would look like, and maybe put a poll and let them vote? I don't know.
I have a screenshot. I can maybe I'll probably send it to you, and don't hold me to it yet, but I'll send it over.
No, it's so cool. Okay, I think I know the answer to this because we kind of talked about it earlier, but player types. So the example I wrote down in my notes would be for different wide receivers. Some receivers are considered deep threats, some are considered slot wide receivers, and then cornerbacks. You have some corners who are considered press corners, zone corners, slot corners. Are there player types in the game, or is it all kind of like you expressed earlier, just going to come down to their ratings and what rating is higher for them in those particular areas?
Yeah, so cornerbacks, they have they have zone attributes, they have man coverage attributes, so it just depends on what they're good at. Okay,
cool. So we have college in the game, and there's gonna be I know down the line franchises getting released, so we're gonna have college and NFL. When we transport our college draft class to our NFL franchise, will the player ratings translate accurately? I know it's going to be scaled. So if you have a 99 overall player in Dynasty from college, he's not going to come into the NFL as a 99 overall. It's going to have to get scaled. But the reason I asked this question is because the last time we had importable draft classes was NCAA 14 and Madden 25 on the PS3 version, but your draft classes there only brought in the player's name and likeness, the ratings got completely scrambled and jumbled. So you'd have a player who won the Heisman and was like a 98 overall. He'd come into the game as like a 68 overall. And so I'm just curious if there's anything set there to help the ratings translate better for the top rated players that come into the NFL, or is it kind of it's just going to be likeness and name and then the ratings are going to get scrambled?
It's not we don't scramble the ratings.
Okay.
So when you come out of college and go into the pros, all of your physical attributes remain the same, right? Because players, when they come into the pros, they don't get slower. They don't, if anything, they get faster. So we may end up putting a slight boost on the physical attributes the first couple, like right when you get into the league. What takes a hit is the mental attributes, because you're just not going to be as smart as somebody, or just as knowledgeable as somebody who's been in there for a while. So the physical attributes take a severe hit, and then a lot of the skilled attributes will take a hit as well. And that's basically what makes you worse when you get into the NFL.
Could you define a skill attribute? Could you define a skill attribute for me? Just because it sounds like your attributes are a little bit different than what we have in Madden. I'm just very intrigued.
I mean, the attributes are a skill attribute, would be like passing.
Okay.
So like, passing accuracy, like spin moves, anything that's position specific, pretty much. Okay. That's not like, so when I say mental attributes, I'm thinking of awarenesses, discipline,
vision.
Yeah, vision, stuff that's more of like, how smart and how quick your reactions are, and whether you make good decisions in the moment. And we have some attributes that represent those things. And then there's other attributes for like, how good can you catch the ball? How good can you run a route? How good can you, do a spin move, stuff like that. Those are position specific, and those will take a minor hit, but not as much as like the mental stuff, the purely mental stuff. That will take the biggest hit.
I absolutely love that. I really like that. That's how you guys are addressing it. I think that's fantastic, honestly, and it sounds perfect on paper. So I'm a big fan of that. Yeah,
it's how it works in real life.
Yeah, it is how it works in real life, and I appreciate you guys taking that real life approach. Scouting/recruiting. Are you able to talk a little bit about how both are going to be handled, like the process for scouting in college, and then or scouting in NFL and recruiting in college?
So for pro, or for the franchise mode, there's
for both.
Okay, and so in Dynasty right now, the scouting is all manual. So if you set it to be manual, you can set your AI to do everything for you. That way, if you don't want to mess with any of it, they'll do it all for you. But if you're doing it manually, then you have to go in, you look through all the players. When you first look at any player coming out of high school, you don't really see anything about them. You don't see their combine results. You don't see their attributes. You don't see any of that. You just see their rank. So they'll show up, this is the number one ranked player coming out of high school, number 2, number 3, number 4, and then they also have a grade. So first thing you do is unlock their basic information, which is basically how interested are they in your school, what is their combine times, how fast they run their combine, their agility, all that, the different combine results. And then after that, you can start unlocking their attributes, and it comes in steps basically. So the first time you unlock their attributes, you unlock 1/3 of their attributes. The second time, you unlock the second third, and then the last time, you completely unlock all the attributes. At any point, you can add this player to your recruiting board if you like them. So you also have a recruiting board screen with all the players that you've recruited. On the recruiting board screen, you can talk to your players, you can email them, you can call them, you can text them. And the basic idea is that you're trying to basically convince them to come to your school, and without annoying them. Basically,
right.
Yeah. And so if you can get them up to a certain point to like you, a certain amount, then you can offer them a scholarship, you can offer them a visit. And then when they come to your school, they can decide whether they want to accept the scholarship or not. At the same time, all the other teams are doing the same thing. So you're competing with them all, and you can see who the player likes the most and who he likes second, third. You can see who he likes. And so that's basically the recruiting process. You find the players you like, you add them to your recruiting board, and then you try to convince them to come to your team. Hopefully they do that. When you get into the pro mode, we have more coaches who will handle some things for you. And so like scouts, you're going to have a team scout. And a scout is just like a coach, right? So a scout, and the whole system is interchangeable. So there'll be some coach. So every coach will have scouting attributes. But if you have a certain coach, who only has really good scouting attributes, but he doesn't have really good other attributes, then you're gonna be like, all right, well, I'm probably gonna hire that guy as a scout rather than an offensive coordinator or rather than a head coach. So, coaches that have pretty much all good qualities or all good attributes, you're probably gonna want to hire them as head coaches. So the system will naturally allow the good coaches to become head coaches, the second tier coaches to become assistants, and then basically whoever's left will probably be hired as scouts or just free agents. And so when you have a good scout, right? Just a good scout, but each scout will be able to recruit up to a certain distance or like a certain number of players each week. Sorry, not distance. It's a certain number of players each week. And they're able to uncover a certain amount of information about the players each week. So what you can do is if you have a really good scout, you can basically say, go find, a bunch of quarterbacks for me or something. Go find a bunch of running backs and they'll start unlocking them for you. That way you can just jump into your recruiting screen and you'll already have a bunch of people unlocked, all the tedious stuff. So, I mean, there is kind of a debate sometimes, like, do you want to make recruiting so easy that the AI just does it for you, right? Like, do you want your assistant coach to upgrade all your players? Do you want your assistant coach to go through all the recruited players and unlock all of them for you so that you just see a screen full of all unlocked players and you make your decision? Sometimes I actually like upgrading my players one by one, right? It's sort of like the grind of it. It's like, when you play a mining game and you're mining the pick, you have to keep swinging at the rock over and over in those games until you finally get some minerals. It's the grind of it. So, there's a part of upgrading your players that hurts your hand because you keep clicking, but it's kind of a part of the grind, right? And
are you limited in how much you can do that? Like, so I know you said there's 3 levels before you can unlock all their attributes. Is there a limit to how many players you can do that to throughout the process, or are you able to unlock the full attributes if you spend the time on 100 players and then pick which ones you want to target?
So the way it works is that each week you get a certain amount of prestige, and it's basically like a different form of, it's like XP, but it's just called prestige, and you spend the prestige every time you ask a player a question. So whenever you talk to a player or unlock anything about that player, you're going to spend a little bit of your prestige. So for little things like uncovering, the basic information, the first unlock about a recruit is very cheap to unlock that. It's like 50 prestige. But then once you want to start doing bigger things, it costs like 100, 200 prestige. And the amount of prestige you get, a lot of it is decided based on your coach's attributes. So if your coach has a high prestige attribute, then each week you're going to get more prestige. So you want to pick up a coach. You want to make sure that your head coach has high prestige. There's a couple other attributes that factor in as well, and that will determine basically how much prestige you get each week.
Okay. Talking with you about this, it's not on my list, but it's something I've wanted for a long time in multiple sports games. And so I'm just going to shoot my shot with it and just suggest it as an idea for the NFL side of things. Okay. And that would be the fog of war. So where you only know the player ratings for the players on your team, and you don't know player ratings for other teams in the league. You have to assign scouts to them. So if you're wanting to trade for a player or sign one in free agency, you know their standard physical attributes because that's from the combine, and then you can see their player stats. But as far as their overalls, their awareness, their ball carry vision, unless you scouted them, you don't really know. So you kind of have to go off of, if it's a free agent, well, you can look at how they performed last year, how they performed the last couple years, and you can make your determination on signing them. You base it off of what's available to you, right? Which is kind of similar to how I do it in real life, right? And also you have players who maybe they're not in the right system. So you're like, all right, they performed at this level, but they were in this system. And realistically, they could excel if they were in a different system. And so the way you don't really know players' full ratings until you either scout them with your scouts or they're on your team. And I think that'd be fun because then you can, we see teams in all sports sign free agents every year that within a year you're like, that was a horrible signing. They spent a ton of money for this guy who did not perform. We see it at the quarterback level. we've seen it at all sorts of levels, you know. And Russell Wilson is a perfect example. He gets traded from the Seahawks to the Broncos based on what he did with his career in Seattle, which was phenomenal. Gets to Denver, does not do well with both Nathaniel Hackett or Sean Payton, and got released. And Broncos are paying him $30-something million to go play for the Steelers this year, because they signed him based off of what they saw in Seattle, but what they got ended up being, you know, that was my idea is fog of war for franchise, just to add another element to it. That's just and I've been wanting that I begged one of the game developers for 2K is called Dazar, and I asked him about that, and he said that was just they thought of it, but they just never implemented it, you know, didn't know how much people would like it or whatever. That was just my idea for
yeah, I mean, I think so. When you get to the pros, it's a little, I think there's something we can do with this, but once you get, so there's a couple parts of this that would require some nuance, I think, because when you get to the pros, the players aren't as unknown as they are in college, right? Because when you get into the pros, every analyst on earth is talking about these players. Everybody knows who their mom is, their son. When they go eat at McDonald's, right? We know everything about these guys. But when they're first year out of college, sometimes you don't know much about them. Or if they've gone into free agency for a year, maybe they come back. You don't know if they're injured and come back. Maybe you don't know how good they are anymore. There's certain things that you don't know about a player. I think we can take advantage of that. Like you're saying, like coming out of college, they should be hidden, the attributes. If a player is a veteran in the league, I don't know if you should have hidden attributes for anybody, because probably played against them a number of times.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield though is my thing. Like, didn't do very well with Cleveland, did not do well with Carolina, did not do well with St. Louis, or not St. Louis, but Los Angeles, and then had a fantastic year last year with the Bucks. You know, and it's like it almost needed him to jump around to find the right system for him to succeed.
So what I try to do is make sure the systems allow for these things to happen without hard coding all these things in. So I think our system already allows for that to happen, maybe not as explicitly. So what we need to do is start highlighting when this stuff does happen. So if a player is on one team and he has very good attributes and he's not doing well, and then he switches to another team and he starts doing well, in the game, that should be some sort of story that we tell, right? That should be something we say, hey, look what just happened here. That's interesting. Pay attention. Rather than making it happen by force, where we just force it to happen. But so right now, if your coach is in a formation where they prefer a lot of short passes, and they're going to call short passes over and over and over again. But if you have a quarterback who has bad short passer ratings, but good deep passing ratings, well, then he's going to suck in that system, right? Because you're always calling short passes and the guy's not good at it, but he's great at long passes. So all you need is for that player to go to a coach that prefers throwing the ball deep. And suddenly this player is going to do a lot better. So I think our system allows for what you're talking about. It's just we have to tell the story when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. I'm really excited to see the full-on intricacies of what you guys have for both the college and the NFL side, because I know we're going to get so much more in-depth in immersion than what we have been getting. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm shitting on Madden, because I actually do enjoy Madden a lot this year. I'm having fun, but I also love competition, and I love having different things added. And I didn't buy MLB The Show this year, first time in a couple of years, because I was absolutely appalled at the lack of features and improvements they gave us to franchise mode. And I'll rag on 2K when they do the same thing. Like if they're not delivering for things that they say that they want to deliver, and they continue to do it over, I don't want to say rag, but I'll call it out. I'll be like, yo, this is an issue. This is what's wrong. Like I try not to be a negative person. I don't like it to be that. But so I know I've related a lot to Madden and what Madden's not giving us. I just want to. It's just because it's only the football game that we have.
Yeah.
Custom stadium sounds. Is that something that's in the game or down the line? Just because I know, you talked about down the line, a custom stadium builder for down the line. And so I was like, all right, maybe custom stadium sounds, because then we can throw in our own custom sounds and stuff like that. What's crazy, it used to be common, man, in games. We used to get it in 2K college hoops, NCAA football. I mean, we used to get custom stadium sounds all the time, and it's been removed from all these AAA titles. And so I was just curious if you guys have looked at custom stadium sounds, or it's on the docket, or...
When you say custom, do you mean like users upload their own sounds, or
Correct.
just like a library that we put in the game and you choose the sounds?
Well, so in the past, these games have offered both. Like they've offered X amount of sounds in the game that you can use, or you can. I mean, the last time we had this was PS3, but you could stick a USB in and upload your own sounds in there, and then assign it to various scenarios within the game.
So we have a guy on our team who's Jason on our team. He's huge into audio, so he's kind of pushed this idea a few times. He's one of the designers on the game, and he's always talking about trying to add in custom sounds and do all that stuff. He's really big into the NCAA modding, so that's kind of where his mind is a lot, which is awesome. We finally like last month, I think, was when we got to the point where I was kind of very impressed with our audio.
Mm-hmm.
Right up until then, for a long time, I'm like, oh, the hits kind of sound like you're crunching a bag together or something, and this kind of sounds a little weird. But I'd say about last month or the month before, the audio started to really, really take a step forward and sound very good. So that's the first step, right? Just getting audio that sounds good, and we're finally there. So we don't have custom stuff, right? We first, like, in order to have custom stuff, first you have to have the base layer, which is good, that people even want to add on to, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we just finally got. But adding custom sounds, I think Jason's going to be pushing for that quite heavily. So I do see in the future. Right now, we don't have any of that. But I don't think he's going to let up on that. So I think we're going to end up getting there.
No, that's fine. And I love it, because that's just a roadmap. And it's good to have a roadmap for people to know, hey, this is what we're going to get, but this is also what they're planning for us. And I think it will encourage people to continue to support the game, knowing this is what you're going to work on for them down the lines. I love the roadmap, and I think that's great. And custom stadium sounds are really cool, because you can, throw in some AC/DC at kickoff or whatever you want. Yeah. It's fantastic. This question, this one hits home, man. CPU AI gameplay, and I ask this because every year I'm having to fix the CPU quarterback gameplay in Madden, as far as they don't take off and scramble, they will stand in the pocket till they take sacks, they won't throw the ball down deep. And every year I have to fix it through various things, whether it's they have traits and stuff that you can edit, sliders have an impact, things like that. And I'm just curious how you guys have looked at the CPU AI gameplay. And the other thing that really bugs me is you watch NFL games and they go up to the line of scrimmage and they'll make adjustments, they'll try to draw the defense off sides, and they'll typically run 10 to 15 seconds off the play clock. Well, currently, walk up, hut, within 2 seconds, hut, unless they're audibling the play, unless they go up there and they audible, there's no, we have these features in Madden right now where we can identify the Mike linebacker, we can adjust the line left or right, we can call hot routes, and every time we do that, our quarterback does some sort of signal, right? And that eats up time on the play clock. The CPU quarterback does not do any of these things. They do not get to the line of scrimmage and stop and point and identify the Mike linebacker. They do not make any line adjustments where they're stopping and adjusting the line and you see it visually. They don't make hot routes where they're looking over and adjusting. They will do audibles, right? Well, they'll change the play, but that's it. And so this leads to them walking up to the line of scrimmage, and as soon as the quarterback gets set, within 1 to 2 seconds, they're snapping the football. So they're not trying to draw you off sides. They're not doing any of the pre-snap stuff that users do. And the reason this frustrates me is because it leads to a time of possession discrepancy, where you see a lot of times in NFL, ball control is a huge, huge strategy. And so my question to you guys is, have you looked into or programmed, or maybe now that I'm bringing it up, you'll look at the CPU quarterbacks and the way that they handle the line of scrimmage and how quickly they snap the football from a trying to be realistic standpoint?
So that's actually that's one of our main focuses right now, is to polish the basically just the flow of play calling and getting to the line and calling your play. And there's a couple parts of it that you kind of have to balance, because some players, so if you're playing against the AI, so user versus AI, you don't want the AI to hurry up and pick a play so that the user has to hurry up and pick their play, right? You want it to be fast enough so where they don't have all day, right? They can't take up 30 seconds picking a play, but you don't want to jump into play calling screen and then you're playing defense and the AI is playing offense, and right when you get into the play calling screen, they pick the play, right? And then boom, you have the 5-second countdown to hurry up and pick your play, right? So you want to leave the play calling screen up for at least like 8 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. And then if the user picks a play, the AI automatically picks a play, right? And so you automatically they start walking up to the line of scrimmage. So then you have like 15 seconds left, 20 seconds left.
Depends on
Yeah. So then you get to the line of scrimmage and you have to, in Madden, I think I've heard a quote that says the average person does like 8 pre-snap adjustments in Madden or something like that.
The user does a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that's even a real thing in NFL.
I think that's more competitive. I know they do a ton like head to head. Me, when I'm playing and I strictly play against the CPU, I will always ID the mic and I'll always adjust my line, and that's about it. The only other adjustment I'll make is maybe if I want to shift the run from left to right, or I'm doing a full-on audible. But I mean, most of the time it's just those two: identify the mic linebacker, adjust my line to make sure I'm blocking where I feel like the pressure is going to come from, and then I go. But or I'll try to I'll fake snap to try to draw them off sides or get a free play or something like that. But that's I think it's definitely different, that number, user versus CPU versus user versus user.
Yeah. So like our AI is not going to do 8 pre-snap adjustments. It's just
nor should they.
Exactly. It's not a real thing. It's just I'm not saying you can't do it if you're playing against another person and you guys want to just sit there all day and do pre-snap commands. That's fine. But the AI is going to try to snap the ball realistically, right? So it depends on whether the AI is winning or losing and what point of the game you're in. If you're at the end of the game and the AI is losing, they're gonna call that ball right when they get to the line of scrimmage. I do agree with you that there's certain things that we need to do, like calling out the mic, calling out the will if you need to, and maybe if you need to like start motioning players or whatever if you're on offense. So that's what we're working on right now, is getting the QB to do 1 or 2 things before he snaps the ball. And a part of that was making sure you have the correct audio. So like if the QB identifies the mic linebacker, you need the animation of him doing something, pointing at the guy, or whatever he's going to do, and then him calling something. Mike, Mike, whatever he's doing. So you need the animation, you need the audio, and you need to make sure that he's gonna do this with enough time. He's gonna do this when he's at the line of scrimmage without getting a delay of penalty, basically. So that's basically what we're working on right now. There's a couple questions like, what do you do if and I kind of answered this earlier when I said the AI is not always going to wait for the user, but if you're somebody who's doing a bunch of pre-snap commands, do you want the AI to wait for you? Right? Like I feel like that's kind of gimmicky.
No,
exactly.
Because you see defenses in the NFL, they're trying to make adjustments pre-snap and they weren't ready, and the offense snapped the football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so all those things kind of have to be kind of taken into consideration, right? Like, how long do you take to pick a play? Okay, how much time does that leave you at the line? Okay, now how much time before the clock runs out? Or like if it's at the end of the game and you're losing and you need to hurry up and pick a play. So all those things factor in, and we're just now getting to the point where the QB is actually going to motion players on his own. The AI QB motioning players on his own, calling audibles on his own, doing all that stuff. But it's not going to be like eight pre-snap commands like we were saying a second ago. It'll just be like 1 or 2.
Yeah. Speaking of motioning players, we've seen a trend in the NFL where majority of teams, a huge portion of their plays involve some sort of pre-snap motion. A lot of it's just to make the defense shift a little bit away from where they're actually trying to go with the football.
I think Miami does it like every play.
Right?
I think the Dolphins do it every play.
All the time. Green Bay does it a lot too. Matt LaFleur, he does it pass or run. There's tons of pre-snap motion. Do you guys have plays in the game that have the pre-snap motion in there with the pre-snap motion's sole purpose is the same purpose that it is in real life, is to try to make the defense react that player movement just to give a slight advantage to the direction they're running to the play? Or is motion mostly incorporated via you get to the line of scrimmage and you just move a player from one side to the other?
Yeah, we don't have, I mean, maybe this is a fault we have that we need to fix, but we don't have motions built into the play. It's something you decide when you get at the line and you see the defense and you want to move a guy somewhere else. You have to make the conscious decision, or the AI has to make the decision to do it at the line.
Okay. How do defenders, both for the user and the CPU, how have you handled the way they react to play action? Because play action, if you're not running the ball successfully, the play action bite that a defense has had is going to be drastically different if you've been gashing them for 5-6 yards of carry.
So in terms of anything deceptive, we don't have anything that's truly deceptive that you can do in the game right now. So you can't really fake out the defense yet, right? Mm-hmm. But with things like play action, the way it works is, so as soon as the ball is snapped, the defenders cue off of the offensive lineman or off of the receiver that's in front of him. If the receiver goes right into a block, then the cornerbacks know that it's a running play. Okay. If the offensive linemen go into pass blocking, then the linebackers, safeties, they know that it's going to be a pass. That's their first thought, right? They're like, okay, it's a pass. We're going into pass defense. Each player's defensive IQ determines how quickly they can recognize that. So a player who has like a 99 defensive IQ will immediately see the offensive lineman do pass blocking, and they're like, okay, it's pass block. It's a passing play. A dumb defender or a lower IQ defender, he's going to see the offensive lineman go into like a pass blocking stance. It might take him a minute, right? He's still going to decide, all right, is it a pass or run? He's not very quick. He's not very mentally sharp, so he can't get it too quick. After that, it depends. So after there's now a second decision that has to be made. So they believe that it's a run, and they're going to act on that run. But it could basically turn into a pass. It could turn into a run if it's a play action. So the next step is, does he hand the ball off, right? So if the offensive lineman goes into a pass, but then he hands the ball off, then the defenders, they have to readjust, right? Or they have to make a new decision and say, okay, now it's a run. I thought it was a pass because the offensive lineman went into a pass block. Now I see it's a run. So they have to change their mind. The smart defenders will change their mind immediately. The dumb defenders will change their mind a little late, or they'll make they'll just make the wrong decision and stick with it for a moment.
Right.
So you have two moments there. You have the moment, the very first split second, where the offensive linemen, you watch their cues and the receivers, see how they're blocking, and then after that, you watch to see if it's actually a handoff. And then if it's actually a handoff, you shoot in the gap if you're a linebacker. But if you realize that yes, this is actually a passing play, then you continue backing up in the zone, or you continue guarding the guy that you are in man coverage.
Perfect. I know you have stated that as of right now, the option isn't in the game, but you guys are going to be working to bring the option to the game. What about RPOs?
We don't have that right now.
No, I know. I figured. I just didn't know if that was something you guys were like, just the standard run pass option we see very, very frequently. I didn't know if that was something you guys are wanting to work on down the line as well, to add RPOs.
I mean, eventually we want to have all of that, right? The next step is for all the deception. We're really going to dive into the deception plays, which requires a whole new host of handoff animations that we have to basically get recorded, and we already have a bunch of really cool pitching handoffs, animations and stuff like that, or option pitches while you're in the middle of a play. But the deception stuff, that requires you to kind of switch the defense back and forth because they're kind of getting confused, and then you have to figure out which players actually get confused and which can see through it, and there's a lot involved with deception.
Right.
So we're waiting on that. The basic stuff, just getting the basic gameplay is there now, and the deception stuff is what we're basically going to add moving forward. But when we go into launch, I don't think a lot of that deception stuff is actually going to be there. The RPO, that would come after a normal option.
Okay.
So yeah, you're looking at 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah, down the line. That's fine. Okay, so one thing, again, it wasn't on my list, but I thought about it, just kind of thinking about the conversation we've had so far. So there's no sliders in the game, no difficulty level in the game. And so my question to you is, and this is a hotly debated topic in the Madden side of things, where it's literally, it comes down to the comp versus the simulation side of things. And it all boils down to pass rush. Simulation guys like myself, we know that on any given, quarterbacks typically have an average of about 3 seconds to throw. Comp guys don't like that. They want 6 or 7 seconds to throw. They don't want pressure in their face. They want to be able to, and you see it all the time. You see these highlights of people, on comp. And honestly, one of my favorite YouTubers right now putting out content, not just because he was a former Packer, who's my favorite team, but Kurt Benkert is putting out a lot of instructional videos on Madden because he's a former NFL quarterback and he does things, and he throws a lot of information up of him playing online. The one thing that's really frustrating to me is he throws these videos and tutorials up and he breaks down a play where he has 6 seconds to throw the football, and I'm just like, that's very rare.
Yeah.
Right. Most of the time you got 2.5 to 3.5, 4 seconds to throw. It's just going to obviously change based on amount of blitzers, or if that defender wins that pass rush or not. And so because there's no sliders and there's no difficulty level, I'm curious what your guys' baseline was and what you looked at for pass rush, so that guys don't have too much time to sit there and find someone open, which would, don't have too much time to sit there and find someone open, which could make it feel like there's not much of a challenge, or would lead to not a lot of inaccurate throws, because a lot of inaccurate throws are tied directly to pressure.
Yeah. I mean, if I went to the NFL right now and took the worst quarterback in the entire NFL and gave him 6 seconds to throw the ball on every play, he'd probably be the number one quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
Right. 6 seconds is just, there's how many cornerbacks can stick with a receiver for 6 seconds? It's just too hard. I'm sure there's people out there who can be like, Champ Bailey can do it all day, but
right.
There's like 2 guys who can do that. So it's obviously not realistic to have a quarterback, so we haven't released the game to everybody online. Like, we don't have 8 million people playing our game online right now. So we don't know what the trends are for, like, there's too many deep passes, there's too many short passes. Like, we can't really aggregate all of the players' online user experience and figure out what's realistic and what's unrealistic for us right now. Most of it, we're tuning the game based off of what our limited play testers are dealing with and what we internally are dealing with. And so internally, the game is balanced pretty well. The quarterback gets about 3 seconds. He gets the right amount of time to throw it. So we're basing it all off of real timing, trying to make it realistic. Okay. If we get into, once we release the game, if we find that there's a huge player base of people who are like, we want more time to throw the ball, or more competitive aspects of the game, then we would have to adjust at that point. But going into the launch, we're going for realism. And then we'll adjust after that. Yeah,
for sure. No, and I'm disappointed because I wish my PC could handle the playtest, but I think struggles running NCAA football 14 revamped. I don't know. It's supposed to be strong enough to do it, but it can't. So I'm unfortunately one of those people. I have to wait until the console drop happens for me to get my hands on it. So I'm just kind of living vicariously.
So real quick about some of the guys who have been in our Discord watching playtesting the game since the first playtest, I got to give those guys props, because the game is pretty bad. When you get into a first playtest of a game, you basically just have to imagine everything working correctly. And so we have guys who have been in our playtest since playtest 1, and they believed in the game since the first playtest, when half of the people on the team were like, oh, this game is kind of weird looking. It's like, it's not even playing that well. And we got guys who are ecstatic about it. So I got to give props to those guys, because they've been, some of those guys, and the reason I say this is because, you're saying, oh man, I want to get in there and play test, but a lot of the magic might be gone if you jump in and play test it. right? Like there is a benefit to jumping in when the game is launched and seeing the final product.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out there. If we had showed them the game when it's testing, they'd be like, "Oh, cancel this game." It's terrible. But that's part of the whole testing process.
Yeah, it's trusting the process.
Yeah, but for some of those guys who are in our Discord, I feel bad because I'm like, I bet a lot of the magic is gone for them, just because they've seen it develop as from a baby up until what it is now. But yeah,
right. No, I'm really excited, man. I've heard good things. I haven't heard a lot. I've heard a little, but I've heard a lot of good things. I'm super excited. I'm checking Twitter daily for updates. Unfortunately, we haven't had anything in let's see here, February 15th. So it's been a month since we've gotten even a screenshot. We're over here on withdrawals, man. Like I'm always looking forward to seeing like screenshots or whatever little snippets you guys can give us. My last question, because you've answered a lot of the final questions just through our conversation. So my last one will be, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this because you've talked about it already. There's definitely going to be coordinators in the game. It sounds like you have coordinators in the game, correct? Offensive, defensive coordinator?
in franchise, but right.
Yeah. Yeah, franchise. What about position coaches?
So the way we have it right now is that the coordinators, each coach, so every member, the way the system works is that any coach can also be an assistant. He can also be a scout. It depends on their attributes, how good they are, and what the team hires them to be. So each coach also has a position specialty. And so like if your head coach, if you have a head coach, an offensive coach, and a defensive coach, and somehow all three of them have a QB as their position specialty. I mean, that'd be dumb of you to hire a defensive coach with a specialty of the QB, but if you want to, you can. So if you have three coaches who have the same position specialty, well, then it's going to make upgrading that position much cheaper. And also that player will end up being much happier. And he'll have all the benefits of like good chemistry, all that kind of fun stuff.
That sounds good. I'm really excited for it. I love that aspect to it. Final question, unless I think of something randomly here. Currently or future throwing styles? Is there multiple throwing styles for quarterbacks, or is it the same one? And then running styles as well. As we know, different heights create different running motions and styles.
So right now, we have a bunch of running animations, but getting them all working correctly is pretty tough. So right now we have, I think, about 2 or 3 that work well and look good for running styles. We have up to like 7 that we can possibly get into the game before we launch. I don't know if we'll get any more. It depends on how much time that we have, to polish and how things. Right now, getting all 7 of our running animations to work is not the top priority. But it is a priority, right? So there's other priorities like physics and stuff like that, which are getting like a lot of the hits to be much bigger and more impactful, which are taking higher priority right now. But the running styles, we have 3, and we hope to get up to 7. I don't think we'll launch with 7. But for the QB passing and to get a new style for like a QB, we actually have to go out, find the QB, get him to do all the animations, all the throwing animations. And it's not just like throwing animations. There's a lot, right? Because you have to have, deep throw to the right, deep throw to the left, deep throw forward, deep throw to the right while you're backing up, deep throw while you're running to the right, deep throw while you're running to the left, all these things, deep throw while you're getting hit. Now short throws, now side throw, all these, there's like over 100, I think. There's a ton of animations. There's a lot. Yeah. So we have to have we got to go out and get another quarterback, which isn't a problem. There's a lot of quarterbacks that we can pull from, but just to let you know the process of how it works.
Yeah.
To have 3 or 4 different quarterback styles, we have to have 3 or 4 different quarterbacks and basically run them through mocap for like a long time to get all these animations perfect, then get them all hooked up. So we're going to launch with just 1, but post-launch, we're going to work on getting more. But I wouldn't expect it right after launch. It'll be a little while.
Will there be a release speed differences? As some quarterbacks have different release speeds, because even if you have quarterbacks with the same throwing animation, you could have different release speeds tied to it, just to differentiate things.
Yeah, so that we do have, and that's just and luckily that's just a matter of kind of speeding up the animation a little bit, right? So if you have a quarterback who has faster release, then they'll just dart his arm forward a little bit faster. So yeah, that's all. We actually have an attribute called release speed, and the higher, so the higher it is.
But it's a new route. We got a new. Hey, we found out an attribute that's different. Release speed. I love it. That's fantastic, man. That's super cool. I like that because release is very, very important. Getting throws off under pressure that you might not if you have a longer release.
Yeah, that moment is huge. Like it's crazy, but it's like there's specific moments that really kind of make the game sometime. And for me, like I remember being younger, mostly a lot of my opinions come from when I was a child playing games, probably. But when I was younger, if I was about to throw that ball and I thought he released it, but I got sacked, nothing would piss me off more, right? Nothing would piss me off more than me seeing his arm go forward and then I get sacked when I think he should have thrown the ball.
Right.
So release speed.
That's super exciting, man. Release speed's great. And then obviously, like you said, down the line, we can get some more throwing animations just to differentiate it. I did think of another question I want to ask real quick. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. You've already been with me for a while. So customization, players are going to create their own rosters. Do you guys have a full-on face sculptor in there, or is it kind of a generic template where we can just assign some pre-built faces, or how will that work?
So we don't. So an in-depth player creator where you can like make the nose smaller or bigger, or raise the eyebrows, stuff like that. No, we don't have that in yet. We you basically just pick a head and then you pick hair, and you pick the head hair that you want to apply to it. We're making updates to the faces because the faces that we had look kind of like they're just they look
you're good.
Yeah, so the new ones that we're starting to see come in, the hair is looking nice. We're able to take advantage of everything that Unreal has to offer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Unreal Engine 5 is insane. So, final question. When can we get some more gameplay dropped? Just when should the community expect to see just some more, not necessarily a dev update, which was the last one, but just some like, hey, this is kind of what we've been working on. Here's some of this, something like that. Just to keep us excited and pumped, because I know we don't have an official release date announcement yet. I know you guys have the date set, not available to tell us yet. We know it's coming in 2024, but just to kind of keep us excited and itching for more and more and more and build that hype.
I'm trying to figure out we talk about it internally, like what's the best way to get this information out there, because there's a lot of stuff we haven't shown. There's certain things we don't want to show yet, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff that we can show. Honestly, I don't know right now we're still deciding what the best way to show it is. Should I show them on interviews like this, right? Like one of the ideas is that I can do more interviews like this and just start releasing and, just come into an interview like this with a new feature and we talk about it, right? So we might be doing that on X or Twitter, on Twitter's Spaces. Like whenever we have something we want to talk about, we'll go onto the Spaces, show it, and then let people jump in and ask questions. Or we'll start like a little weekly podcast with me and the other two designers like this, and we'll just talk about the features. So I don't have a good answer for you right now. Mostly I just post things when I think when I have time and I'm not working. Like if I see like, I got a free hour or two, let me try to find a screenshot that looks really cool, or let me go through some of the stuff that the developers have been working on that looks cool and go post it. But we don't have right now, there's no real process of like, okay, we're going to show this, and then we're going to release this to the public. Our full focus right now is just polishing everything about this game. Like it's insane, but it's sort of like Star Trek, like, all power to the lasers or whatever, like all power. Right. We're all power towards mechanics. Everything's towards gameplay. If somebody asks me about like, hey, what's your marketing plan right now? I'm like, I don't have time to talk about that. I just I'm focused on making this game awesome.
Right.
So yeah.
I guess take this with, for a grain of salt if you want. My suggestion or idea would be for how you want to present things to the community is I would try to, whatever you are allowed to show, isolate what you're allowed to show that is different or separates you from what we currently are given to us from your competitor, right? So that's why I hit on weather visuals. Yeah. Horrible weather visuals in your current competitor. I don't consider Axis a competitor. So Madden, right? And anything else that you guys, real-time physics, right? Madden was going hardcore towards real-time physics with the Infinity Ignite engine, which I thought they were making huge progress, and then they went to Frostbite and poof, animation-based gameplay. So I don't know. I guess if I were you, I'd try to highlight what you have that you can offer that we aren't getting from Madden without directly saying, hey, this is what we're giving. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to get in a pissing battle with a multi-billion-dollar company. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I mean, you know, you just don't. You know what I'm trying to say. But so, like, I would say, you know, weather and, you know, physics and stuff like that that we don't get, I think would be a great thing to showcase. That's just me personally, because that's what gets me hyped is, oh my God, I'm going to have this. I can see this. Even if it's just screen grabs of, you know, different things you can do in Dynasty and franchise via like scouting or how you do players. It's just, that shows the depth. Just a screenshot. People, I don't know, sim guys love that. And your base is going to be sim community. So that's just my 2 cents.
Oh, yeah, I think it's good advice.
So whatever you want to do. But, well, I've taken up so much of your time, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on here. I really think we got a ton of information for everyone who's excited for this game like I am. I'm super pumped. I can't wait for the game to launch. More specifically, I can't wait for it to launch on console, which I know is going to be later than on PC. But I'm so excited for the game, man. I literally cannot wait to start playing it and incorporating it into my YouTube channel. I've already put the sections for it in my Discord just so people know, hey, it's coming. It's coming. Awesome. So appreciate you so much for taking the time. And hopefully we can get some new information via Twitter, just a little tease here or there in the next coming days, because I know a lot of people were excited and were waiting for it.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me. You know, next time I think of a feature that maybe we can talk about, I'll just message you and maybe jump back on the show and we can talk about the feature. Yeah,
would love it, man. I'm always trying to come up with ideas, you know, just for fun, you know, just to try to, you know, help give, what's the word I want to think here? Ingenuity into, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Come with something cool and something cool and fun that people might enjoy. So, well, thank you so much, man. And for those watching on YouTube, if you aren't able to listen to the whole thing, this will be up on Spotify as well. Link is in the description below. And let me know what you think. If you have any other questions that you want to ask Micah, put them in the comment section below. All questions are available to ask other than when it's coming out. We're not asking that. That'll come out when the time is right. So, you know, put any other questions you have. It'll either be, hey, we can answer that, or hey, we can't. But as you can see, he answered all my questions today regarding anything. So as long as it's a legit question, guys, just put it in the comment section below and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.